Welcome to the People First podcast. Now, I am super excited for this one. I've bumped into Nat Brown. Hey, Nat, how you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic! And I'm just with my notes in front of me. I've got so much I want to talk to you about. But before I even bother doing all that, before I go into everything we want to talk about, all the notes we've written down, I want you to introduce yourself to the people. Let them know who you are, what you do, and why I've brought you in today.
So I'm Nat Brown. Thank you for the intro. I'm a mother of two. I work full time. I think my story I want to share is important because I think I'm a person who absolutely loves what I do with my job. I work for the Australian Paralympic Committee, or now Paralympics Australia. And what else about me? I'm new to CrossFit. That's how I met you. I'm loving that as well. Yeah.
Someone who didn't like the gym, I hear.
Hated the gym.
Really? Why? What do you reckon created that for you?
I've always been a team sport person. I grew up playing touch football, Oztag, hockey. Just never really liked the gym. I'd get intimidated.
Any representative teams there?
I made a couple of Australian train-on squads for...
You do look familiar. Is it a hockey thing you went well in?
No, Oztag.
You look familiar. You've always looked familiar. You've had that familiar face to me. I'm like, I know Nat from somewhere, but maybe it's Oztag too.
Yeah, long time ago.
Now, the Australian Paralympic team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's something that I want to talk about. But before we go deep into all of that, you're a mother of two. How old are your kids?
7 and 3.5.
7 and 3.5.
Yep.
Now, both boys, right?
Both boys.
Both boys. And can I ask you, being a father of just one little girl, what do you think raising two boys, where do you think the biggest challenge lies in raising two boys? I mean, they are a little bit apart, and I'm sure you'll tell me why they're a little bit apart in a minute. Do you find, what is your biggest challenge as a mum and raising these two boys?
The biggest challenge, I think, is your children copy what you do. They are what you do.
It could be a good thing. I know you.
Totally, right? They're a product of your environment and how you create these little people's upbringing. So, it just means that home life, we have to make sure it's positive for these kids and it's going to impact them for the rest of their life. So I've noticed just the small things, my casual swearing around the household. Sometimes these little people copy me, and it's just my little reminder of, hey, they're watching everything that I'm doing.
You don't even realize they are sponges. Now, Quinn, my little girl, she's 4. And the other day, she just, at the dinner table, she just called Chloe a bitch. And I was like, is it something, you bitch? And I was like, Quinn, what the? And she bawled her eyes as soon as I was like, what, why would you say that? She knew it was wrong. And I said, where did you hear that from? And it's from school. Like some child, I don't use that word around the home. I use a lot of other words, but bitch is not one of them. And so I was like, wow, you are a sponge. You would have heard that maybe how many times at school? 2, 3. I assume the kids wouldn't be saying it every single lunch break. And she has gone, I'm going to use that in context next time we have dinner with my mum. Full on. Now, I was actually talking to Nat before we started recording, and she told me interesting facts as to why there is about a 4-year gap between your children. Do you want to fill us into why?
Sure. So I was telling Shane, with my job, I've done 3 summer games. So I've done London in 2012, Rio 2016, and now I'm about to go to Tokyo for the next game. So I've had my children, I've had one child after every single Paralympic Games. So Morrison was born after London. Austin was after Rio. So I
should have named them Rio and Lunny.
I can assure you there'll be no more children after
Big Ben.
Tokyo.
Well, no, that's according to this system you've set up. You owe us one.
Yeah,
you will. Oh, that's cool. So 4 years apart because of the games, right?
So in our office at work, there's a lot of mums who do what I do, and we all have our kids who are the same age. Yeah, there's a 4-year gap between all the kids in the office, which is pretty cool.
I find that interesting. That I think when you have a job that is pretty intense, you do a lot of work and you love what you do, to organize your life around that is a must. And so for you to have kids any earlier, that in that season would have been almost chaotic for all the workflow and everything that you do, right? Now, speaking of our biggest challenges, like, so kids can be a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest challenges that I've experienced for myself is just, trying to navigate through all of the parenthood, work balance, life balances that I just haven't got my head around yet. And they've been my biggest challenges. And I'm finding that because they're unlocking year by year by year, I'm finding more challenges, more challenges unlocked, more challenges unlocked. What would you say your biggest challenges thus far as an individual? And we'll go through where your biggest challenges lie at work later. But for now, biggest challenges for you that you've experienced in the last 39 odd years?
Biggest challenges for me? I think I'm a sucker for just taking on challenges. I think I thrive in them. So
Challenge magnet.
yeah, and I don't do anything by halves. So for example, when I decided to get married, well, doing it in Australia and having a small wedding just wasn't going to cut it for me. So for example, I made it hard. Had a big wedding in Malta, planned the logistics around it, and we pulled it off. In that time, my father-in-law was sick, or future father-in-law was sick with cancer. He passed in that time. So I've always, got different things going on at the moment. Amongst being a mum, 2 kids, work full-time, Tokyo, travelling a lot. I'm also in the process of, I'm meant to be building a house at the moment. And,
oh, really? Whereabouts? If you want people to know what suburb.
Just in Mulgoa Sanctuary, just out near where we live in Penrith, which is pretty cool. Doing it with an architect, just all the details. I just make things a bit hard for myself.
Bit extra.
Yeah, but I don't do things by halves. That's just what I do. I like the challenge. Yeah.
Which one out of all of that at the moment would you say has stood out for you as going, you know what, that rocked me to the core and I wasn't sure that I was going to bounce back from it?
I would say the building the house one. I've actually parked that project at the moment. I think I've just got so many things going on. I am pretty good, or I'm better now at just being better self-aware of where I'm at and knowing where my limits are. And sorry, I forgot to also add that I've also just launched my own company as well. I'm just doing that on the side. So I think it's just about sometimes you can be ambitious and just have a lot of things on your plate, but you also got to have the ability to draw a line in the sand and go, I'm going to park that right now.
Yep.
I can't get to that. That's not a priority, so I don't burn out, because I have burnt out before. So, yeah, it's been a challenge. In that time, I would say in the last 3 years, my husband lost his job as well.
What did he do for work?
He was resealing. He was a subcontractor. He was resealing and regrading showers. He was working with a product that is called epoxy, and he got an allergic reaction to it.
Oh, no.
So that kind of sucks. That wasn't good for his health. So we had to, pack up his business. He went on workers' comp. It was just a really challenging time. So that all impacted the house build and all sorts of things. But I think it's just sometimes you go through tough times. You learn from them. But it's also I've learned you just sometimes have to park projects, or just know that sometimes things take a bit longer to do, and just to be okay with it.
100%. And I think it shows a greater maturity of an individual who can say, you know what, right now I cannot take on all of the things that I've decided to, and I need to park this here. That does not mean I've failed or given up. It just means I've learnt something about myself. Totally. And from that evolution becomes probably a better project further down the track, because you're developing and growing. Yeah. One of the things I'm interested about, and why I think when we move into what you do for work a bit more, is where did your ambition, do you think, come from? And you seem to have a ton of ambition. Like you've taken on all these tasks, and you're very ambitious, opening your own company. You're raising children. You're in a demanding role with the Australian Paralympic team. Where does that stem from? Where's that desire? Because I think you have to want it. Because I would not want all those things. I'm not I'm ambitious in other areas, but for me, I know where it comes from. It comes from a drive of just challenging myself. But at the same time, it's not only that. For you, what is it? Where does that ambition come from?
I don't know.
That fire in the belly. You said you lost it for a bit, but it's come back.
I grew up with 2 older brothers, so I'm the youngest.
Yep.
I think, I don't know, I guess I just watched them and saw that nothing stopped them. And I think being the little sister kind of went, oh, screw that, I'm going to do that too. Or I had very supportive parents. I still have very supportive parents. I've just got people around me who just encourage me and have never held me back. Even my husband, we're quite opposite, but he just supports every single stupid, crazy idea that I have, and we just complement each other.
Because you pull them off, apparently. You get him done at a higher level, execute. He knows. He has the faith.
He comes along for the ride, yeah, and he trusts me.
How much older are your brothers?
One's 11 months older than me.
Oh, wow.
We're lucky we're not born in the same calendar year.
Yeah. That'd be challenging. From like
Mum
finding your place in the family.
Mum and Dad told me I wasn't an accident. I was just unexpected. Whatever.
Reframed perfectly by the parents.
Yeah.
Nice work.
And my other brother is about 4.5 years older than me.
Yep. And what do you mind sharing what they do for work? Like where do their ambition as kids sort of push them towards in stuff?
One owns his own company. He's like a project manager for like construction.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing really well. And the other one is he did town planning degree, but I think he works he sets up NBN stuff. He's got Yep.
Yeah. So being the youngest of three, was there always like inner sibling sort of competition?
Oh yeah.
And so you do that,
kids,
I can do it better.
Yeah. There was always two of us that would pair off for different reasons. The boys would pick on me, or me and the older one would pick on the middle one because he was chubbier, or the younger two would just because we were closer in age. So I think the fact my brothers have they've been successful, but I think that used to intimidate me, but now it drives me. Now it's like, well, screw it. If they can do stuff, why can't I,
And what is your definition of success? How do you define success for you and your family?
I used to define success by money, and it's nothing to do with that. Like the fact that I have a job that I absolutely love, I'm content, I'm a mum, I juggle a lot of things, that's success. Am I happy? Absolutely. Do I enjoy life? Yep. To me, that's success. I'm really happy. Good headspace, good people around me.
Which is success. Actually, you said that and it sparked it. I had a message this morning and it was a message from a friend of mine. The greatness of a man is not a woman. The greatness of a man or woman is not in how much wealth he or she acquires, but in his or her integrity and his ability to affect those around him or her positively.
That's cool.
How cool is that? Like you just said that and I'm like, boom, that reminded me exactly. That is the epitome of success. If you were to talk about, say, your childhood, having the siblings, having the supportive family, what did you want to be when you grew up? Where do you reckon all of the stuff that happened to you as a kid pushed you towards the role that you're in a moment? Because I don't think that people like yourself have these opportunities in their jobs if they haven't done a lot of work on themselves or developed quite well as kids, adolescents, and young adults. So does that make sense? Like what would you say was your childhood like to help you get to the position that you're in now in the work that you do?
So my childhood, I had a great hot childhood, just a Western Sydney girl. Both my parents are from overseas, so I'm first generation Australian, which is kind of pretty cool. Massive family. My dad's one of 10 kids.
Wow.
No, one of 11, sorry. Mum's one of 6.
Wow.
So dad was born in Hong Kong, mum was born in Malta. So I've got family all around the world. Lots of cousins, never short of a cousin. Anyone who knows me knows I have lots of cousins.
Yep.
So family was always big. We always felt like we belonged. So I actually feel really fortunate because I speak to people and know that they have one cousin or not a lot of family or they're not close to their family. And over the years, it's made me appreciate even more how grateful I am to have that. And I grew up around that, which is really cool.
Yeah.
With regards to how that kind of, in essence, pushed me to where I am with work, I guess my advice is don't ever underestimate the value of a high school careers day. And that's how I kind of found the path of where I want to be and what I want to do. And I think I was probably maybe in year 10 or 11 and just looking at courses. I loved sport, played sport, but, didn't know what I could do. I didn't want to be a PE teacher. I didn't want to be a physio, and there was something called sports management.
Yeah.
And I looked into it, and I remember when it said sports management and what careers it could lead to, it actually said something about working for the Olympics. And it was at that point in time, I think I was in year 11, I went, I want to work for the Olympics.
Yeah, wow.
And I've had that drive. So I would have been 17 and I'm nearly 39 now. that's 22 years of passion doing what I'm doing. So I don't work for the Olympics, I work for the Paralympics, and it's so much fucking better. Excuse the French. But you know what? It's the same. It's that international level mega event. It's the pinnacle of sport. And I'm part of that.
And explain to me, because I don't think people listening might understand the significance of your role. Explain to us what it is.
Yep.
So what your title is, and tell me, like, it's not easy to get this role. It's something that's sought after by everyone.
Yep. So I don't like to talk too much about
humble,
myself.
that's why. This is the time not to be humble now.
So I'm the deputy chef de mission for the Australian Paralympic team for Tokyo, which in essence means I'm the second in charge of the team, or so the chef de mission, which is a very French term.
I like oui. I like
yeah,
French.
oui. So that's like the head of the delegation. So I just support the chef, who is my boss, Kate McLaughlin. She's amazing. I'm also the head of operations for the whole Australian team. So it's a pretty big gig, but I love it.
So if there's a problem with the Australian Paralympic team, is it does the buck stop with you before it goes to your boss? And then if there's problems that I'm sure there's nothing you can't deal, but if there's something that you need help with, she'll then step in and help. Or just have her own list of things and you're just separate entity?
Yeah, pretty much anything to do with operations. So if you're talking about a team, it's logistics, it's flights, it's ground transport, it's cars, buses, it's accommodation, it's moving horses, it's moving boats, it's the accreditation, it's the sport entries, it's room allocations, it's, we've got 400 people that we need to cater for over there.
Now, with every job comes a story, right? Every single, as a trainer, my first story, day one on the job, working at a gym, lady falls off the back of a treadmill, breaks both ankles. Yeah. Not just one. First day, I'm on reception alone as a gym floor overseer. First day of the job, lady falls off the back of the treadmill, breaks both ankles. Fantastic. It just led to this whole, she drove a manual car, had to organize her to get her husband in. Yep. Anyway, nightmare. So that's stories.
Called troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Amazing.
If you had one story to share with us about what you've done over the last 3, Tokyo, Rio, London, what is one thing that you're like, I cannot believe we A, pulled that off, B, sorted it out, and it just blew your own mind?
It was probably my first games, which was London 2012, and I was the uniform distribution manager. And I essentially got thrown that job maybe 4 weeks out of it, and my boss just said, Nat, I need you to set up a warehouse. All our uniforms are arriving. You're going to work with the Navy, and you've got 7 staff to manage, and go and pack 400 bags and make some sense of it. So just to put that in context, it would have been about 18 months earlier that they would have collected uniform sizes and placed all the uniform orders. So I had no oversight of that. I just got handed a shitload of uniforms. I didn't know who needed to be in what size or what method of madness they collected sizes, and they pretty much just said, go and pack the bags. And I spent 4 months full-time in a warehouse with 7 people from the Navy. By the end of it, I probably had 4 months to do that. Then I had to put it all on pallets. I think it was about 35 pallets worth of uniforms, send it all over to Cardiff in Wales. And then I had to distribute it out to everyone and get everyone to try their kit on after they landed on ground. So they would have travelled from Australia straight into Wales, and the minute they landed, they came straight to me to try on their uniforms, and they were tired and cranky. Yeah. And then I just had to manage that, and that was my first games experience, and it was a bit of a mess. And I remember during those 4 months, there were tears and frustration, and by the end of it, by the time you finish a big project like that, you're like, oh, wow, let's do it all over again.
Yeah, let's start prepping for the next, right?
Yeah, and I'm doing it now. I think you would have seen yesterday.
Yeah, I saw a snap or an Instagram story or something like that of a warehouse.
Yeah. So we started that for Tokyo yesterday.
So this started yesterday, and that'll take you 4 months?
Yeah, I'm not doing that now. I'm the person overseeing it.
But that'll take 4 months for them to... Totally. Did you do what was done to you? Like retribution? Just throw it at someone and go, good luck?
Well, you know what? It's so funny. Things I learnt, that was 9 years ago that I would have done that for London, and there's so many things I learnt from that experience that I'm now saying to my guys in the warehouse, hey, make sure you do it this way and that way, because hindsight's a bitch. I learnt so many things from that we can do it better this time, and it's great.
Yeah. Oh, man. I've tried to organise apparel, right?
Yeah.
That I created, in generic sizing,
Oh.
for 100 people at a gym, let alone an entire athlete team done with just 400 bags.
Yeah, now you think about Paralympic athletes. Some of them missing arms,
Yep.
missing legs.
And so
they're in
everything's like,
wheelchairs,
obviously it's all
everything
modified. Yeah,
custom.
custom.
Well, it's made generically, and then we give them the opportunity to customise it and get alterations and all that sort of stuff. So that's another.
And that you said they took sizing 18 months before, which means
Yeah.
for a year
Yeah.
and a half, like, well, 18 months, like, you've got a fair amount of leeway with size changes, people that are now
Absolutely.
peaking
And
for
they-
their sports.
Absolutely, and they have to predict that. Or you've got someone who wasn't even considered 18 months ago, and they've just turned up on your list, and you're like,
You're not on the
you're
list.
a
You don't get one.
3XL.
You don't get one. Sorry. You're not, no. I got another team here. I got the
Yeah.
Italian team. Give them a different uniform and just
Yeah.
cross it out. Wow.
So that's just my probably first and fondest memory of a challenge I had.
Yeah. Now, what is your highlight from all three? Is it for you? Tokyo's yet to come. That's it. When's that? August? No.
August.
August.
This year.
Are you excited?
Yep.
I'd be pumped. It's not
Yep.
far off. And so, out of the ones that you've done, all the leading up to this one in August, what is the highlight for you? Where does your passion to go and do it all over again? I mean, there has to be a reason. There has to be a purpose, a connection there for you to go fiery. Like, that's exactly why I'm doing it. Like, that builds me up, and let's go again. 4 more years of prep. Can't wait.
It's funny at the end of every game. So my boss and I, Kate, I think she started the year before me, so she's in her 12th year. And I think after every games, we're like, we are not doing this again. And, I've already started having meetings with Paris 2024, and I'm like, are we going to do, are we actually doing this again? What's probably reignited my fire is this postponement. This games with COVID and has been the most challenging to date. But I think the fact that everything didn't go to plan. We spent 4 years planning for Tokyo, and then they got postponed on the 24th of March last year. We now then spent the next 18 months replanning everything, something that would take 4 years. We had 18 months to do. And there's times, I think just before Christmas, I was ready to pack it in, and then I came back. I had a month off and came back from leave, and, I was excited again. Sometimes when things don't go to plan or you get a big challenge, like to me right now with everything and all the COVID layers and the elements that we have to consider, it's all about troubleshooting. And the fact that nothing has gone to plan with these current games, it actually excites me. I love it. I thrive in it. I love the troubleshooting.
Yep.
I love just you got to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
At some point, we've got shit to do. We're going to have to start locking in plans and planning, getting everything organised. But I've found that challenge has probably kept me going, because I think when you keep doing games, you can get bored with it.
Yeah.
So this one has certainly
Made it fresh.
Yeah.
Something you've never experienced before. Now,
Yeah.
where were you March 2020 when you were told, oh yeah, shit's hit the fan around the globe? There's problems. Do you remember that moment?
I remember the moment when the games were postponed. I was actually on a call with the Tokyo 2020 organising committee, and I hadn't heard it yet, and they hadn't told it to me yet. And someone from the Australian embassy had actually messaged me saying, "Hey, have you heard this?"
And you're like, hold on, let me
I
just
had
chat to this.
I had to reach over to my phone, and then I had to awkwardly ask this question. They're like, "Oh," and the Japanese are quite conservative, so they didn't give anything away. So I remember reading it in a text message midway through an international meeting, which was quite interesting. But it was a bit of a shock and a relief when it got announced. Look, it had never happened before. It was better than them cancelling it. But I think the sad part and the hardest part about it was our organisation made a lot of staff redundant when COVID hit, and about a month after that. So, I lost some friends and good colleagues during that time, and it put a lot of pressure on us. But I was very grateful that I still had a job.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
From all of that, so you were mentioning before we started recording as well that it created an opportunity for you to see a problem now that's moving forward.
Yeah.
What was the problem you noticed?
So when COVID hit, it was a bit of a shock. We all went into a working from home arrangement. I had colleagues that lost jobs. I also thought, shit, am I next? Am I going to lose my job? What happens if these games get cancelled? I was homeschooling, so I was walking a lot.
Yeah.
I needed to get out of the freaking house.
Yep.
And I was doing a bit of soul searching. And it just made me realise and thought, geez, what can I do? How can I maximise on this or what opportunities are there right now and how can I maximise on them. So just before COVID did hit, I was due to go on a site visit to Japan in March, and about 3 weeks out that got cancelled, and that was my last trip to Tokyo before the games, which were originally in 2020. So in saying that, the fact that I couldn't travel overseas made me go, oh, hang on. So there's a few international events coming up in Australia in the next few years. One of them's the Women's World Cup in 2023. There's also like netball, basketball. There's a few World Cups going on. I think there's a road cycling event in 2022 as well. And hopefully very soon they announce and we win the bid for the 2032 Brisbane Games. But anyway, just in saying that, when I work, I go overseas a lot to do a lot of I guess when you plan for a big event, there's a lot of work that goes on in the background with the people who organise it. And I use a lot of local people in the host countries for whatever event and games that I'm working on. So in Tokyo, I've got a guy on ground who does all my running around. He's called a fixer. So I realised... Yeah, a gopher.
Go for this.
So I realised once that site visit got cancelled that there was an opportunity that, business travel just changed completely. And sometimes, people aren't going to be able to come out or in and out of Australia for these events coming up very easily. So then I decided to start my own company and go, hey, why don't I be a fixer? And with the wealth of experience I've got, I can be more than a fixer as well. I can come up with solutions and ideas for these guys because this is my home soil. So that's what I did. So during COVID, the Women's World Cup was actually announced and Australia and New Zealand won that bid, which was awesome. So I kind of predicted that and went, beautiful. So I've already had some meetings. So I pretty much started my own company to be a local person on ground for the next couple of years for the organising committee, for broadcasters, for the different teams, and just to say, hey, whatever you need done in Australia to plan for that event in the next couple of years, you can't get here. You're very unlikely to, Australia's the other side of the world for a lot of these countries.
Yeah.
They don't want to come here. They don't want to quarantine in hotels for 2 years. So the idea is I'll reach out to them and say, what do you need done? And I'll help you plan.
Yeah, that 2-week quarantine period would be the end of the world for some. That's what's the point. Like,
I'm looking forward to it when I come back from Tokyo personally. I get to recover.
2 weeks rest.
Yeah.
Do you, when you are going through, how do you promote that business? I mean, is there a select group of people that you just know? Is it just all in-house promotion or?
Yeah, it's pretty much in-house promotion. So I had to create the company, create my brand, do logo, business cards, LinkedIn's so powerful.
Yeah, wow.
And then I think, just reaching out to my networks. And I think I didn't realize how broad that was until I needed to use it for my business. So just connections, and I believe in the universe. So it's amazing how many conversations I've had through my work with Paralympics going, I was meant to meet that person or have that conversation because I'm going to chat to you later about my business. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah, so it's just I'm very lucky that what I do I've been able to leverage my business on the side just from knowing the people that I do through my work, which is great.
Because I could imagine it being very difficult. You wouldn't just go and add a Facebook group and just try and advertise it on Instagram.
No, it's a very niche group, and it's a sports.
For specific people that you need to talk to.
Yeah.
Now, with the COVID stuff and having to change direction in what you said, 18 months, you guys had, you've had to change direction within 18 months, right?
Replan everything for the games in 18 months, yep.
Does that mean we can start seeing more reoccurring Olympic Games because you're so much better at it now? We can just do one every 2 years, just half that time because you're so much better at it now. Like,
funny thing is,
why wait 4 years? Let's just go.
6 months after Tokyo is the Beijing Winter Games.
Oh, so you got that 6 month gap there.
It would normally be an 18-month gap at the postponement, so that's closer. And now Paris is only 3 years away.
So we can just keep doing it. We just drop off a year because 4 years is a long time.
I don't need a break to have kids anymore. So
yeah. And that gives athletes more opportunity, and then they're expanding career. Now, speaking of athletes, do you get a chance to sort of dive into their stories? How they became
it's the best part of my job.
Some of the best athletes on the planet, and how is there anyone there that in your mind you're like, this person is just, in my eyes and my view, just the elite of the elite? I mean, there's so many of them that are just so great, but if there was one that just stood out for you, personality-wise, performance-wise, is there anyone in there that you...
It's funny. I don't our athletes are all like they're elite athletes. So
Yeah.
this isn't the Special Olympics. These guys are elite, right? My relationship and connection with the athletes isn't so much about understanding and appreciating their sporting prowess, because I just love, like, on a friendship level, or understanding the journey that they've been on, or, understanding whether they were acquired their disability from or impairment from an injury or an accident or an illness, or some of them who were born with their impairments. Like, to me, that's the part of the athlete that I go, oh my God, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Or to hear just how many games that they've done or how they started off is just phenomenal.
Yeah, the stories you would hear. Is there because
Oh.
the reason I asked that is I remember, and I can't remember, I think it's a US Paralympic basketball player that I remember watching a documentary on, and the story, just quickly, and I could be getting this all wrong. I know that the story is right. I just can't remember who, but anyway, he could even be an Australian one. Why would I have been? Anyway, the story was that he was basically hated his life and a drunk and an alcoholic, and was just wasting his life away as an individual, fully capable individual, right? Like, just living his life, but wasting his opportunity in life. Got drunk one night, wound up in the back of a ute. I think his brother or his friend didn't know he was in the back of the ute sleeping.
Yeah, I know a lot
Drove,
of those stories.
crashed the car, became a paraplegic, and now is a gold medal, Paralympic, changed his life, motivational speaker, inspiring children, creating positivity all around the world. But because of that accident, had he never been a drunk, I guess, to begin with, and been so off his face that he found himself in the back of a ute and then in a terrible accident, he would not have changed hundreds of other kids' lives, thousands of other kids' lives, and being the person he was, and being now a gold medalist, and being one of the best Paralympic basketball players on the planet. Like, it's amazing. Like, that stuff, that gives me tingles, Like, I'm like, that is cool.
And for a lot of these guys, if you ask them the question, if you could turn back time and change anything, or not have that accident, or that not happen that day, would you? And a lot of them are like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, wow.
It's funny. I was at a wheelchair rugby event one time, and I worked closely with a wheelchair rugby team many years ago with work. So I knew a lot of the boys, and I knew all their stories. So one time I was sitting at a wheelchair rugby event. I was just in the crowd. I was talking to a friend, and I was just explaining all the different athletes, and that guy, he had a snowboarding accident, and that one over there, he was in Canada, and he had a drunken night out, and he fell down some stairs. That one, he dived into some water. That one over there, he was an aspiring rugby league athlete. He was 100 metres from home. He was a passenger in the car. The person wasn't drunk, but they just fell asleep at the wheel, and he was the one person in the car that ended up paraplegic. So I knew the stories of every single athlete, and I was just telling a friend. By the time I'd finished talking, I didn't realise I had an audience of about 30 people around me who were listening, going,
intently.
Oh my God, how amazing is that? Like, and the fact that they heard me just sharing the stories. But look, aside from their stories, that they are athletes on the court. But I think when you hear the stories of the athletes, it just, I don't know, it's that personable touch. The story just shares a lot more, amplifies their journey, what they've been through, their resilience, and it's just amazing.
Because I think people can kind of put it two ways. If something traumatic happens to them, it can be the end of their search for purpose and meaning. And then some people can go, well, hold on. I've got a chance to now to show and to change. Is there one individual person that you just think, like, there's no way, shape or form that this person cannot go unmentioned because they are just absolutely changing lives?
Look, I'm really good friends with Danny DeToro. She's our team captain for the second games in a row. She's just an amazing human. Like, I don't think her story in particular is anything exciting. I think she had an accident, or a brick wall might have fallen on her when she was at school or at a swimming carnival when she was about 11. I don't know. She was in high school. But she's just, you just meet, I think I've just made a really good friend out of where I work, and she's just amazing. And I was at her wedding last year, and she's just, she cares about everyone, and she's passionate, and she's an athlete, and she's a leader, and yeah, it's just cool.
Now, having your role and the responsibility, have you ever felt like you've dropped the ball? Have you ever felt like you've let down the team or anybody that you work with? And if you, how did you learn from that mistake? Because I think we all make mistakes in our jobs, in our work, like I've made mistakes, and I would put my hand up first and say, hey, here's a list of things that I've learned from. This is why I'm much better now as a trainer, as an athlete, as a coach, and I can help these people. But that's because I made the mistakes, and now I'm also ready to wear them on the chin. Have you made any dramatic mistakes that you can remember that you're like, yeah, I needed to learn from that? That was something that needed to teach me a lesson.
In Rio, in the lead up to it, probably 3 weeks before I departed to go to the games, I got really sick and I was burnt out and I didn't recover. And my flight out to Rio, I had to delay it. I couldn't leave with the rest of my colleagues. I had to delay the flight by about 3 days. I'd been to the doctors in the weeks leading up to, couldn't shake it.
So it was like the flu or?
Yeah, I don't know what I had. Even flew business class over. I got there, I landed. Within about 4 days, not even 2 days, I was in hospital.
Oh, no.
I was in a Brazilian hospital where no one spoke English. I'd been on that many rounds of antibiotics before I left Australia. In the end, they just put me on a drip with the antibiotics. I managed to get through that. I had a really bad cough. I think I ended up coughing so much that I cracked a rib.
Oh.
So I ended up in hospital again. So, that to me really showed... and then I think I recovered from it, and then my boss said to me, do you want to go home or do you want to stay? She said, don't make a rash decision. It's totally what you want to do, but just sleep on it. And I'm glad she offered me that. So I ended up staying, and then the last 2 weeks of the games I did my job, I recovered, I did well. That's not something I did intentionally, but what I've learnt from that is now I manage a team of people and I'm very aware about checking in with them regularly, reminding everyone not to burn out, checking in to say, what do you need, how can I help you so you don't burn out, letting people know that it's okay to put your hand up if you need help, letting people know it's okay that if you are the person who needs to go to hospital at games, you're not a burden, you're a team member and we'll look after you.
100%, Nat, well said. And it's important that your team feels exactly like they are a part of a team and not a burden. Now, moving forward, do you have any routines? Are there any routines that you have daily? So what does a day look like for Nat?
Get the kids ready for school, pack bags, drop them off, go to work, do my thing.
Yep.
Come home. Between my husband and I, someone picks them up from school, and then, dinner, and then coming home, put them in bed and get back online doing more work.
Because I think you feel like sometimes you feel when you see people who are successful in what they do, you think they must have the most perfect routine, balanced lifestyle, meditation at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, but no, because real life is very different, especially when you've got kids and a family to balance on top of that, not just yourself. So that's why I'm always interested. Is there something that you could not live without in the morning though? Or during the day even?
Coffee.
Coffee? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Gets
need
you
a coffee.
through.
Yeah. A real coffee.
Gets you online. It's that's switched on now.
Yep.
How do you take your coffee?
An almond latte.
Ooh, they're nice. I've only just started trying them, but still a long black fan, double shot, extra shot. Now with one of the questions I generally ask here on the People First podcast is that is there anything or any books, audio books, something that you think would help other people that are listening in any area of life? It doesn't have to be about what you do or about being a mum or about being, your role as the Australian Paralympic team and all that sort of stuff. Something can be completely off task. Is there a book or something that you've read or podcast you listen to that helps you that you could reference and help other people with that they might want to try and listen to it or read it?
I'm not a big reader, but since COVID hit and I would say I've gone on a bit more. I'm not a religious person, but I think I've gone on this spiritual journey where I've just discovered more about myself and just been doing a bit more soul searching. And I am a sucker for a good psychic reading and all that sort of stuff, which is really cool. And
how spot on? There's this lady.
Amazing.
You've been that spot on.
Yeah.
I need to get. But that scares me a little bit. Does it frighten you?
No.
Not at all.
No. I like it. I'll get a reading just to see if I'm on track and or I just need some clarity and going, where are we at? Like,
that scares me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I'm not on track.
that's that little controlling part of me.
Experience that bridge when I get there. If it's on fire, it's on fire. Because I have a friend of mine, her tata, her grandmother, she reads coffee cups and stuff like that.
Cool.
And she can't speak much English. Well, she can, but not perfectly, right? And she read one of my coffee cups, and I could not tell you how she was the most accurate. She doesn't know anything about me.
How do they read coffee cups? What, once you finish it?
Yeah, I have to leave a little bit in there. Then I have to put my thumb into the coffee cup. I was like, this can't be legit. She's not going to be able to know anything.
Yeah.
Legitimately, everything that she said, not one word wrong about my life.
Yeah, I believe it.
And I drank the coffee down to like a little bit, left a little bit in there, swirled it around, put my thumb in, put it on the saucer, and then she was like spot on.
There's something bigger than what we know.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, totally.
And that's what made, and so I always think, I would love to go down and do that again and sort of have her read my coffee cup. But it does make me fearful. Like I get this little knot in my stomach where it's like, maybe what she reads next is not really for you to know. Maybe not entitled to know that. Maybe that's part of living it.
And I think you wouldn't be told it if you're not meant to know it. And if you're meant to hear it, it'll come out of someone's mouth.
Yeah, I guess. I get worried that they just tell me shit I don't want to hear. Shane, you're in a terrible position in life. Yeah. You just sort your shit out. I know I've been trying for
but what can you learn from that?
Well, I don't know.
There's an underlying message. I don't know.
I have to bring you with me. Decipher and organize now my life moving forward. Now, the psychic spiritual journey for yourself?
I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I recently went and got this reading off this guy at some fair, and he was selling this book, and I bought it, and I've brought it here today to talk about it. It's called Desire by Leon Beaton.
Now I'm going to want to read it. You can't put a book in front of me, and I want to read every book I see.
It says connecting with your divine inspiration. Yeah, inspiration. But I'm a firm believer of your energy and what you put out there and setting your intentions, it all comes back. So if you think you can't do something, well, you know what, you're probably not going to do it. And if you believe in yourself and how you vibrate your energy, I'm all about energy. 100%. Like I can pick up on energy very easily, or someone's energy if
rubs up the wrong way.
Oh yeah, I just remove myself from that situation. Like to me, I don't need to carry that energy. I just it's not good for you, and I think it's about being aware of that. I've had people come up to me and said, oh my God, just being around you or your energy is just so positive, and like to me that's a compliment. But
it's a safe energy. I feel I like that, and like you feel like a trustworthy, safe energy.
And I get that from you in the gym. I hate the gym, and the fact I met you and I went, oh, actually, no, this guy doesn't make me feel intimidated. He encourages me and he will help me.
Yeah,
you're probably the reason I've turned up for the last 6 weeks.
Which is good because
accountable.
I remember just starting the gym and thinking, the last thing I want is for someone to walk through this door and to feel the way I was feeling in every other environment that I'd been in a gym. And it was frustrating me because I'm like, I've never experienced like a comfortable, safe, positive environment. It's always about, I felt like it was all ego-driven,
totally
macho-ness, especially with the men, like, because I'm male energy, I'm going to, I guess, sort of read that a little easier. So in those gyms, I was like, I feel like I don't even belong in these environments.
That's what I hated about it.
Created this space. And hopefully everyone gets along. I mean, I don't see anyone arguing, so that's a good thing.
Good on you.
Now, with books, this is the one I want to read that now that you've put that in front of me. So when you're done, let me know.
Yep.
Or I'll just go buy my own. Is there anything that you've read recently, apart from that one, or heard recently that's just gone, boom, 100% online with where I want to be, where I want to travel, and what I'm trying to achieve and accomplish? Now, I asked you if you wanted a different, I think before we started recording, if you wanted to move forward in this job, right? Like, how do you move forward? Is it Kate, your boss?
Yeah.
I mean, if she stepped down and said, "Hey, this is for you,"
me. Yeah. To me, I've never been caught up in titles.
Yep.
I've been fortunate enough. I've progressed in my career in this job where I'm at. I've been there for 11 years. It's kept me going because over the years my job has changed. But I don't get caught up in titles. Do I have ambition? Yeah, I do. But I know opportunities always turn up, and I kind of see where I'm at. I still have the passion for what I do. I'm happy to keep going, but creating my company on the side has been, when I get bored with that, and when I do, and I'll figure out when the time is right. I don't know when that is yet. I've now created something that I can do for myself. So Do I want to do what my boss does? No, she's probably more the figurehead, the one doing interviews, having to talk more in front of people. I like being the person in the background, just keeping stuff going.
Yep.
Sometimes I've had to step in for her and do the odd radio interview or stuff for her, but that's not my thing. You know, she does it because she has to. So, yeah.
No, that's cool, because I would like to ask that question with people, because I think sometimes we get caught up in, I guess, not even the present, because the present's a good place to be. But if we're not looking, because sometimes I've been so caught up in the present that I don't think it's not a negative to look forward to the future. Yeah. So I sometimes think for my own self, I look back and I've done this for 10 years, and I think, Shane, could you have done more if you looked up a little bit more frequently? If you looked up and went, oh, that person 4 years down the road there, well, I want that in 2.5 years. You know, I've never done that. I've just lived my own life, done my own thing, and run my own course.
I have to.
But then I think, well, okay, can I help more people if I look up a bit more frequently? Is there a position? Can I do something bigger and better and bolder? Do I have more audacious goals that will put me and everybody around me in a better position? And I think that's a responsibility and obligation of my own to do that every now and again, but I haven't. So I ask everybody that I talk to about it to probably steal their ideas. So no, that's cool. Now, one of the other questions we asked Nat is, if you were to have dinner with someone that has passed, and I'm going to ask both. If you could have a dinner with anyone alive at the moment and who has passed, who would they be? And they can be at the same dinner, which I think is always cool, because then you different personalities.
So this was an easy one for me. If someone who's passed, I would easily just say my father-in-law. So his name was Steve. His nickname was Chock, and in the family we call him Bun. So he was like a best mate. He was my husband's best mate. So the father and son, and they're very lucky that they had that.
Yeah.
But he was also one of my best mates, and I actually met my husband through him. His dad was an OzTag referee, and I knew him for maybe a couple of years before I met my husband Nate. So he passed away just before we got married, about 5 weeks before our overseas wedding, which was, in the lead up to a wedding, you're meant to be excited, and the family was dealing with a family member slowly dying, and then he passed. So, but it is what it was. But yeah, I was very close to him. I've got a special connection with my father-in-law that I'll forever have, that he passed away on the 8th of May in 2013, and then my son was born on the 8th of May 2014. So, you can never, ever imagine to plan that, and it's a small blessing in disguise that a shit day in our family forever turned into a good day. And
wow.
That's the connection we have. I have no doubt that he was somehow part of that, and the universe lined that one up right, and I'll forever have that special, connection with him.
Now, I remember before we started recording, we had a chat about this, and I thought, you said he, obviously wasn't there for the wedding, and I said he was there.
Oh yeah, totally.
He just wasn't physically there. Now, in that moment, could you feel, like when you were getting married, could you feel his presence? And was there something that stood out where you're like, yep, totally. There he is right there?
Yeah. And even when I had my speech, and I didn't even need to cry, because I just knew he was there. And I think that the sad thing is, yes, he did pass away 5 weeks before our wedding, and he passed away of cancer and suffered from that. But I think deep down, I believe that he died during that time so we could enjoy that holiday. So, we had a holiday as a family that we were all overseas together for a fortnight in Malta, and it was almost like we grieved and celebrated his life. And when you're grieving, what better way than to be together as a family in Europe on a holiday together, like to really mend some of that. And I have no doubt he was part of that. Like, that was just the little silver lining of, he passed, but you know what? He gave us that opportunity to enjoy it, so it wasn't stressful. And I'll forever be grateful for that, because we needed that.
I love that that's such a strong connection for you now. I think that's, if you're ever going to lose somebody, to have those connections, especially with the birth of your son and everything that followed that.
Really cool.
Is just, it is a gift.
It's funny, in the lead up to when I was pregnant, some people kept saying to me, "Oh, you don't want the baby born on that day. That would be so sad." And I'm like, "No, it wouldn't be sad. It'd be pretty special, actually." And he came. I think he probably came about 6 days early.
Yeah, wow.
So it was all natural.
I'm all.
It was almost to the minute. It was almost to the minute.
Things happen like just randomly. I think there's a reason that happened.
Universe.
Yeah. Now, someone alive, who would you? And if all of the people in all of the world.
Look, just off the top of my head, I do like a bit of humour. So I initially thought someone like Jerry Seinfeld, who would, I know he does those
Be a dinner about nothing.
No, he does those interviews in the cars. Have you seen them?
Yeah, the
funny.
comedian ones.
So, yeah, look, anyone that can make me laugh would be.
You're a Seinfeld fan then?
Not a big one. I can't quote things like some of those Seinfeld nerds.
But he's stand-up.
He's just funny.
Yeah.
He's just a funny bastard, yeah.
He reminds me of like the American version of Carl Barron, just, like Carl Barron's the Australian observationalist almost. And he's the same with the American attitude with the people in New York and not.
About everything, yeah.
The best. Because when I've thought about this a long time, it just changes every week though. Like, what's his name? Williams.
Robin
Williams, yeah. And I think, someone passed Robin Williams, but then I get lost on the track of Williams, and I'm like, what about Robbie Williams as well? Like, he's alive, like obviously. Yeah. But then I do, like, it just changed all the time. There'd be so many amazing people to chat to, and I think, Jerry Seinfeld would be, maybe he'll be on my podcast one day. But that'd be cool, wouldn't it? Now, what I want to do before we wrap things up, I've kept you here for over an hour, and I know you've got a whole bunch of planning to do and stuff to do for not only work, but for your life. Before I let you go back into the free world there, what do you want to leave people with? Is there a message that you want people to know that you think, you know what, yes, I'm here talking about myself. Yes, I'm here talking about what I do for work. But still, if we can connect and I can give a message to the people, what would that be? Being the People First podcast, I want this to leave them with something that is fresh from you and not sort of influenced by anything that I've said.
Look, I didn't have an answer planned for this because I didn't know you were going to ask. I guess
they're the best ones.
Just be kind to people. Have empathy. I often see people are just so quick to judge someone, whether they're the person who parked in the disabled car park and they don't look disabled. Like, you don't know. You don't know if someone's had a tough day.
Never know they did it on purpose.
I remember once I was in Kmart and I was at the photo booth, and this lady had 2 kids out of control, and she was screaming at them. They were screaming. And in the past, I'd be like looking at them strange. And then as a mother, I went, fuck, we've all had days where our kids are little shits, like who's to say she hasn't. Obviously, she's having a really bad day. And instead of standing there judging, I think I just offered to help her. Like, be kind to people. Be kind to yourself, I think, is really important. I think that's a lot of things that people don't do well, is just being, we can be so hard on ourselves. We don't know when to stop, listen to our body, all those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I'm big on 2 things. The expectation thing, the expectation on yourself. I mean, having unrealistic expectations. Yeah. And I do it a lot here in the gym. So I say, we all want to lift heavy. We all want to move fast. We want to move well and athletically. And yet, I don't know, we just have this expectation that every time we train, we must do that. And, it ruins motivation. It ruins passion for fitness, passion for health. But I think that's about life as well. As a business owner, I've got these expectations of, gross income, all that sort of stuff. How many people can I help? What type of facility do I run? Is it clean enough? Is it strong enough? Is there enough development? And I think if you're not patient and kind to yourself and going, I'm doing a good job, and that doesn't need to change. I think I'm in life and in my parenting and all that sort of areas, doing good is good, and we always want to be the best. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's the best avenue.
No, and define the best. What's the best?
Well, yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like that question about what's success to you. Like,
I can quote it for you again if you like. No, thank you so much for coming in. I really do appreciate it. I know you're very busy, and
I'm busy, but I'm never too busy. I don't like when people say that to me all the time, because then I feel like I'm not that important. Like, I always have time for people.
But I do appreciate it so much, and I thank you so much for sharing the last 55 minutes with us. It's been good. Quick, hasn't it? Go so fast.
Very quick.
Now, if somebody wanted to get into contact with you, they sort of resonated with something, maybe they've lost a loved one, maybe they are struggling with things in their life that you've mentioned or brought up, or they want to talk more about the psychic that you went and seen. How could, and if you minded, do you mind if people contact you?
No.
How could someone get in contact with you? How can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook.
Under just NATBROWNE.
Yep. You can find me at the gym.
Brown with a B. No.
Brown with an
Brown with an E. I was when someone goes, so what's your name for coffee? I say, that's Shane with a H. And they're like, and it just throws them all the time. They're like, what are you? do you mean?
You're that idiot, are you?
Well,
that
and
the
then they sit there
barista hates.
and they're like, HSHA. No, just Shane with a H in there.
Well, I have to say Nat, N-A-T, because a lot of the time they put Matt or...
Yeah, you look like a Matt.
Yeah.
Like Matt. Is it that 1T or 2T, Miss Matt? Miss Matt. What'd you call me Miss Matt for? Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, guys. Make sure you reach out to Nat. If you enjoyed the podcast, you want to share it, be my friend and share it for me. I'm sure Nat will share this too. Make sure you get it out to people. And if you can, leave a review on iTunes and anywhere else you can leave a review and spread the love. Until next time, thank you so much for listening and have a great day. See you, Nat. Bye, everybody.
Bye.